You still don't get the whole picture, Rob. I need to spend time with my daughter. I can't just leave her with the babysitter every night. The best you'll get from me is the weekend and maybe, just maybe, an occasional day during the week. Can't the evenings you spend with Melanie include me? Some of them can, but I still need to be alone with her. It sounds like you're trying to cut me out of your life. Okay, Rob, time for the truth. I'm not trying to cut you out of my life, but I'm trying to slow down. Talking about marriage after we've only known each other for 2 weeks scares me. I never even thought about such things. I need time, Rob. Time to get to know you better. Time to see if we can live honestly. I agree with you that we seem to be off to a good start, but I'm not as confident as you are that this will last, at least for now. I think I see it. Maybe I went a little overboard, but in my defense, I've never felt so confident that something is just perfectly right before. I'll step back and let you set the pace. Can I make an offer that guarantees me at least one night during the week? I don't know. What is this? You and I will play bowling in a mixed league. I'll treat it like a date night and take care of the babysitter. Maybe in the league you were thinking of quitting? Well, that's a great idea. And in keeping with the fact that you need to get to know me better, would you and Mel come with me to a barbecue at my parents' house next Sunday? I wish I could. I know I said I'd let you set the pace, but could you and Mel have dinner with me tomorrow night? I make some damn good meatloaf. I think we can do this. Say, at 7, we will be there. On Monday, I was home by 5:30 and immediately got to work on dinner. By 6, it was already in the oven, and then I spent a little time putting things in order in the apartment. Monica had been in the apartment before, of course, but with her tendency to head straight to the bedroom, I don't know how much she'd actually seen, and I didn't want her to think I was a slob. It wasn't in bad shape, but it wouldn't hurt to try to make it a little better. Monica and Melanie rang the doorbell at 7. I told them to relax in front of the TV while I took dinner out of the oven, but Melanie wouldn't hear of it. I'm already a big girl and I know how to set the table. I showed her where the cutlery was and placed the plates where she could reach them. Monica watched with amusement from the living room as I sort of hovered over Mel to make sure she didn't drop or break the dishes, but she didn't. She couldn't arrange the silverware correctly, but she had a concept. She had pieces on both sides of the plates, but they were random. On one plate there was a knife and fork on one side and a spoon on the other. On the next plate, the fork and spoon were on one side and the knife on the other. Still, it was a good try on the part of a 6-year-old. I took the meatloaf and baked potato out of the oven and the salad out of the refrigerator, and we sat down to eat. Melanie monopolized the dinner conversation, talking about her day at school. We heard all about her friends and her new boyfriend, Jeffrey. Boy? I asked. Aren't you too young to have a boyfriend? All girls should have boyfriends. Mom has it, which means I should have it too. Does your mom have a boyfriend? I looked at Monica when I asked this question, and she looked at me with some kind of half smile. Do you know who he is? Of course I know, silly. It's you. A partial smile remained on Monica's face, and she shrugged slightly. After dinner, we parked Melanie in front of Cartoon Network, and Monica and I played cribbage and talked until it was time for them to leave. One of the things we talked about was how I would watch Melanie when Monica started bowling the next day. We decided that I would babysit at Monica's so I could get Mel to sleep, rather than having her fall asleep at my house and then waking her up to take her home. I kissed both girls goodnight and told Mel, I'll see you tomorrow, and then went to bed. On Tuesday morning at 6:30, Monica called me and said that dinner would be on the table when I came to sit with Melanie. I arrived at 5:45. We had dinner, and then Monica went bowling. I asked Mel what she wanted to do, and she said she wanted to play a game. What game? A game for adults, like you play with your mother. I realized she was referring to the cribbage game Monica and I played, and I knew that the game was years beyond her abilities, so I pulled out a deck of cards and taught her how to play fish. She was good at numbers, but had trouble with card faces. After a while, we sat and watched cartoons on TV until it was time for her to sleep, and I read to her until she fell asleep. Monica returned home at 9:45 and told me how the evening had gone. She rolled 214 and won the jackpot, but was 6 points short. We kissed a little on the couch and then I went home. On Wednesday, I picked up Monica at 6:30, we were on the tracks by 10:07, and I was introduced to my new teammates. It was a mixed league, and according to the rules, a team had to have at least 2 women or 2 men. Some teams had 3 men and 2 women, while others had the opposite. Our team consisted of Bill and Paula Martin, Susan Billings, Monica, and myself. I had the lowest GPA, so I got the number 1 role. Susan was next, then Paula, Monica, and Bill. We started well and took all 3 games, and I had a good evening with an average of 164 over 3 games. Monica put me to shame with scores of 179, 184, and 201. After we finished and left the last league track, I told Monica I needed to go to the store and buy a new bag, and told her I'd meet him at the bar. I bought a bag and headed to the bar where I found Monica sitting with some guy. I walked up to the table, pulled out a chair and sat down, expecting Monica to introduce me to the guy. But instead, the guy said, "I don't remember asking you to join us." I looked at Mon and asked, "Did you join him at the table or did he join you?" "I was here first." I turned to the guy and said, "She is my girlfriend. We came together and we will leave together. And since my girlfriend is sitting here, I will sit here too. If you have problems with this, I am ready to go with you to the parking lot, where we can discuss this issue in more detail." He gave me a hostile look, got up and left. "Your friend?" I asked as he left. "Hardly. I've dated him twice, decided 2 times was too much, but he can't seem to take no for an answer. Maybe he'll accept it now. My hero. Saved me from a bad man. Damn right, woman. I'm saving you for myself." We went to my house and played in the bedroom until it was time for her to go home and let the babysitter go. On Thursday, Monica was alone with Melanie, so I drove to the gas station and got the Mustang ready for Saturday's trip to the paint shop. On Friday, dinner was already waiting for me when I arrived at Monica's, and I received a kiss for dessert just before she left. Mel and I played cards again, and this time, I taught her how to play war. She had no school the next day and was able to stay up until Monica returned. Mon put her to bed, but Mel insisted that I read to her, which I did until she fell asleep. When she fell asleep, Mon and I settled down on the sofa and kissed for about 20 minutes. And then she pulled away and said, "This is so stupid." She took me by the hand, lifted me from the sofa, and led me to her bedroom. As soon as the door closed, she began to undress, looked at me and said, "Don't stand here, but act according to the program." I quickly undressed and followed her onto the bed. When we were lying in our arms after a full program, she said, "Mel usually doesn't wake up until 7 or so. Will you be able to leave by then?" "Don't know. After you have fun with me, I usually sleep like a log. Do you think you can get me up in time?" She laughed. "Give me a few minutes to catch my breath and I'll be out of here." "I don't want you to leave, but I can't let Mel see you here when she gets up." I told her I understood, but in reality I didn't. Mel was too young to understand, and by the time she was old enough, I assumed I would already be married to Monica. But Monica wanted it, so I got up, got dressed, and got ready to leave. I told Mom that I needed to take the Mustang to the paint shop in the morning, and asked her if she and Mel wanted to come with me, and then have a picnic in the park. She said it was a good idea, and I told her I'd pick her up at 9. I went to my room, set the clock to 8, and fell asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow. I picked up the girls at 9, and we went to the gas station to pick up the Mustang. Mon got behind the wheel of my pickup truck and followed me to Ray's collision. Ray inspected the car and asked me the same question he always asked me every time I brought him a car to paint. "Are you going to keep it or sell it?" My standard answer has always been, "Don't know. I cannot decide." This time I knew the answer. Prodam, this took him by surprise. "You are sure?" "Yes, need money." "I just might find someone who wants to buy it." "How much are you going to ask for it?" I told him the number and he said he thought it was reasonable. I knew he was wondering why I made the decision so quickly. Everything was simple. I wanted money. I didn't need them, but I wanted them. I wanted them because I was sure, absolutely sure, that I would marry Monica and want to move us from an apartment to a house. It wasn't a problem because I had the money to do it, but I wanted to pay cash and not finance it. I had a little over $415K in the bank in checking accounts, savings accounts, and certificates of deposit. I even had a money market account with a broker I knew and trusted. My brother has. But I wasn't sure it was enough to buy the house I wanted, so I wanted to top it up. Why did I live in an apartment if I had so much money in the bank? It's simple. Living alone, I didn't need more than an apartment, but after Karen and before Monica, I didn't meet a single woman who was enough for me to think about anything other than an apartment. Why did I have so much money in the bank? My father was in the insurance business, and when Karen and I got married, he convinced me to get life insurance. Because of my age and Karen's age, at that time I was able to get a policy for $250,000 for each of us, for a reasonable amount. The policy had a standard double indemnity clause, and when Karen died, I received $500,000. I had credit cards, but I rarely used them, preferring to pay in cash. I continued to fund my account as I sold the cars I bought and restored. When I sold a car, part of the proceeds went to purchase the next project, and the rest went to the bank. Financially, I was in great shape. My Silverado was only 5 months old and was paid off. At work, I had a 401k that the company matched up to 5%, and I contributed 10% of my salary to it every day. Ray gave me a couple of recommendations on cars I might consider for my next project, and then I left the Mustang in his capable hands and drove away. We went to the park and let Mel play, and about an hour later, I took out the picnic basket I had packed, and we ate. I dropped the girls off at home by 3 o'clock and then drove home, showered and changed to get ready for the evening with Monica. I picked her up at 6, and for a change, I didn't ask where she wanted to go or what she wanted to do. I wanted to spend a real evening with her, not just take me to your bedroom. We had dinner at Duke's Steakhouse, and then I took her to the pit for drinks and dancing. We had a good time and returned to my apartment around 11. Mon found a nanny who could stay the night so she didn't have to rush home. It's good that we finished with her only at 3 o'clock in the morning. When I woke up at 9, Mon was gone. I made myself breakfast, then did laundry and cleaned the apartment until 1 p.m. when I picked up the girls and headed to my parents' house for a Sunday barbecue. It was a family holiday, and in addition to my parents, there were my brother, sister, their spouses, and 5 children. I owed a lot to my brothers and sisters. Before they got married and started procreating, there was a lot of pressure on me, as the eldest, to give my parents grandchildren. I could never convince them that Karen wouldn't just let me get pregnant. When Ron married Wanda, and Wanda gave birth to twin girls and a boy a year and a half later, the pressure took off from me. Then Julie married Mike, and within 3 years they had a grandson and a granddaughter. I stopped hearing from my mother that I couldn't give her grandchildren. My whole family seemed engrossed in Monica and Melanie. The younger Ron and both Julies were close in age to Mel, and she immediately got involved in playing with them. Mom, Wanda, and Julie quickly took Monica away from me, no doubt to get dirt on me and give some of theirs away, and I ended up freeing Dad from grilling so he could have a beer or two and chat with Ron and Mike. It was a good day, and as we were getting ready to leave, both Mom and Julie told me that I would be a fool to let Mon go. "She's perfect for you," Julie said. On the way home, Monica said she really liked my family, and Mel said she hoped she could see Jack, Marvin, and Jessica again. They were a lot of fun to play with. I dropped the girls off, received kisses from both, and then headed to my apartment and to bed. On the way home on Sunday, Monica told me that she and Mel were supposed to go to her mother's, so she doubted she would see me until Tuesday. Monday, when I got home from work, I went to look at a couple of promising cars that Ray had given me for my next restoration project. I found a '91 Silverado that I liked, and I made the man an offer. and he accepted. I wrote him a check called West Side Towing and arranged to have the pickup truck transported to the gas station. Tuesday and Friday were almost identical to the previous week, except that on Wednesday, after bowling, Mon told me that we were invited to her parents' house for dinner on Saturday. On Saturday, I met her parents, and I immediately liked them and got the impression that they liked me. They kept Mel at their place for the night, so when I took Monica home, I stayed the night, and this continued until noon the next day. I came to the conclusion that Mon was insatiable, and that the only reason I could stay with her was because of my daily trips to the gym. There was a 24-hour fitness center 3 blocks from my work, and I spent most of my lunch breaks working out there. I took Mom to Red Robin for lunch, and then we picked Melanie up. We ended up staying at her parents' for dinner, and then I took the girls home. On Monday after work, I went to the paint shop. I called Ray and told him I was coming, and when I arrived, he introduced me to a man who was interested in buying the car. I told him my price, he accepted it, and wrote me a check on the spot. On the way home, I stopped at the flower shop and bought 2 flower arrangements, one for Monica and one for Mel, stopped at Mon's apartment and gave them to the girls. I received kisses from both of them and went home. The next 2 months passed almost like a repeat of the previous weeks, and then I decided it was time to get it done or start retreating from the potential heartache. It was Saturday, and Mom had a babysitter for the night. We went out to dinner, had a drink, and danced a bit, and then came back to my place. I poured Monica a drink and then got down on one knee and asked her to marry me. She didn't light up, smile, or jump for joy. She looked away from me and seemed hesitant to speak. Finally, she looked at me and said, "I was afraid of this and hoped that this would not happen. I've been very happy in our relationship, honey, but I think it's confession time for me, and you might want to retract your proposal when you hear what I have to say. I already told you that before I met Dan, I was a real slut, but I never told you the whole story. I started my path as a slut in high school. A week after prom and 2 days after my 18th birthday, I gave myself to Drew, our neighbor's 19-year-old son, and I loved it. After that first time, we did it wherever we could, whenever we could find time for it. One night we went to a party. I had a little too much alcohol, and Drew and I snuck out and found a bedroom. We had sex, and after we finished, he got up and went to take a leak. A few minutes later, we got down to business again. Halfway there, I discovered it wasn't Drew. It was some guy who wandered into the room and saw me lying on the bed. I did not care. Later, they told me that 9 guys spent that night with me, and 3 of them more than once. After that night, I was practically a toy for Drew and his friends. Threesome, foursome, gangbang, I did it all and did it voluntarily. After graduating from high school, I attended a local community college. Drew and most of the other guys I talked to had athletic scholarships to 4-year schools, but Drew had a cousin who went to community college, and he set us up with him. Archie ran with a group of bikers, and I rode with Archie. At first it was just Archie, but later it was a whole gang of bikers. I found out that the rule was this. For the first month you were just an old girlfriend of the guy you were skating with, but after a month you became a general club girl who could be used. During the first month you were brought up to speed so that you could leave if you wanted. If you stayed there after the first month, it was taken for granted that you knew what you were getting into. I couldn't wait for the first month to be over so I could get back to my usual sex routine. Nobody forced me or pumped me full of illegal substances. I just liked sex. In the second semester, my first class was business law, and the guy who sat next to me on the right was named Dan. I know most people don't believe in love at first sight, but this is the only way I can describe what happened between me and Dan. I left the biker gang, put aside all thoughts of multiple partners, and focused solely on Dan. We got married, and I expected to live happily ever after. Dan was open about the fact that he didn't want to have children, and he made sure I understood that before we got married. Then the pills failed me. Looking back, I think I should have supplemented the pills with my diaphragm, but I didn't, and ended up pregnant. Dan said it wasn't a problem and we'd just arrange the abortion. I refused. Even though I didn't really want to be a mother, I just couldn't go through with the abortion. Dan and I argued until it was too late to do the procedure, and then he ran out of the house and joined the army. I was angry with him for what he did, and after he left, a month later, I mentally said, "Fuck you," and called Archie. He spent 2 days in my bed. On the third day, he brought Max with him, and the next day, it was Max and Ted. The guys thought it was great to have sex with a married, pregnant woman, but I went back to multiple partners and gangbangs and loved it. I was sitting in the back seat of Archie's car when my water broke. I received the news of Dan's death a month after Melanie was born, and I'm sorry to say it didn't have any impact on me. He left me, and for me, it was just a release. When the doctor told me I could return to sexual activity, I left Melanie with my parents for the weekend and called Archie. I spent Saturday with him, and Sunday with him, Ted, and Max. By the time I arrived at my parents' house to pick Melanie up, I felt guilty for leaving her. Over the next week, Archie and a few others spent the night with me, and one night, Melanie started crying, and I was so into the sex that I went ahead and let her cry. When the guys were done with me and she was still crying, I finally woke up to what I had done, and a real feeling of guilt came over me. That night forced me to pull my head out of my ass and start being the best mother I could be to Melanie. I doubt you want to be married to such a woman. Perhaps I wouldn't want to be married to such a woman, but now it's not you. You put all that behind you and focused on being Melanie's mother. What you did in the past is none of my business. You are now the woman I am asking to marry me. There are a few things behind my back that I'm not very proud of. The past is the past. Our lives began that day at King Soopers. Everything that happened before this day has nothing to do with our lives now. It's not that simple, honey. The guys who handled me are out there, and it's inevitable that one day we'll run into one of them. They were a rude bunch, and I can only imagine what they would say or try to do. I don't know if you want to put yourself in a position where you have to put up with it. They should be worried. If I have to fight their entire group, as far as I'm concerned, you're worth it. Do you really mean that? You know that, yes. Besides, you know that I have always wanted children and that the only way to have them is to marry a woman who has them. I know for sure that Melanie won't mind. You should marry me for Melanie's sake, if for no other reason. Well, I guess if Melanie wants it, I'll have to say yes. We got married in a civil ceremony, with her parents and my parents as witnesses. We bought a 4-bedroom house on 10 acres. 1 bedroom for us, 1 for Melanie, 1 turned into a home office, and 1 turned into a guest room. The house had a 3-car garage, and a lift was installed in one of the bays so that I could continue my hobby of restoring cars. We moved into the house to live the good life. 3 years after the wedding, the first big problem appeared. Before this, there were several small ones. Some of her old friends talked and tried things, but broken noses, black eyes, etc. put an end to it all. Archie's 4-day stay in the hospital made it clear to him that I didn't think well of their actions. A big problem arose at Monica's work. One evening, she came home from work and told me that she had a serious problem. A friend stopped by the office of Alex, one of the sales agents, a couple of days ago. This friend was one of the bikers I rode with when I was a wild child, and Barney recognized me. Apparently, on one of the trips I took some photos, and Alex told me that Barney passed on the photos. Alex wants me to have sex with him, or he will send copies to you, distribute the photos around the office, and also at the 2 restaurants where we sometimes have lunch. You'll have to do it here in the house. What? Have you gone completely crazy? Not at all. We just need to get him somewhere where I can deal with him alone. You will tell him that I will be out of town for 3 days, and he needs to come here because I call every evening when I am out of town, and you need to be here to answer the call. Tease him a little. Ask him if he would like to make out with you on my bed while you talk to me. I bet he won't miss this chance. And so he did. Monica told him that she puts Melanie to bed at 9, and I usually call around 10, so if he can get there at 9:30, they'll be on their way by the time I call. She told him he had to leave by 6 in the morning before Melanie got up. She then told him that if he behaved well, he could come back the other 2 nights, when I was gone. He knocked on the door at 9:25, and Monica answered the door naked, except for a pair of sandals. She led him into the bedroom, saying she wanted him in her ass when I called. I never let my husband have my ass, so you'll be the first in it, after Barney and his cronies. I was outside the bedroom door when he walked into the room, and he never knew what hit him. We had a short conversation with him, including some threats and blackmail. He happily told us where the photographs were and seemed to understand that it was better not to mess with me. The next day, Monica went to work, but Alex was not there. Around lunchtime, she learned that he had called and quit. Not being a completely trusting person and having slight doubts about Alex's confession, I tracked down Barney and talked to him. When I left him, I became convinced that Monica had never been photographed playing her sex games. I don't know if her past will come up again and try to cause problems, but if it does, we'll deal with it. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.